The Leafs have hit rock bottom as following another brutal loss, this time against the Ottawa Senators. Fans are fed up, not only with this team, but their effort level. We have some new comments from Craig Berube, but also some comments from the Leafs stars. What they say has fans fired up. We're going to break that down, discuss what it means going forward as the Leafs are entering a crucial stretch of play, playing some of the worst hockey of their season. But before we get into it, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. Thank you guys for your continued support as we're on the road to the big goal of 17,000 subscribers. With Darius, a lot to go over today. We're obviously going to be talking about a brutal loss in yesterday's game a little bit, but we have some comments following that game, and we covered some last night on Craig Berube calling out the stars, all these different things. But man, oh man, has it gotten to a point now where the Leafs, this is now, when I say rock bottom, I know a lot of you are probably commenting they're still in the playoff spot, all this. As it pertains to this specific season, this is the lowest that fans have felt. It's the lowest that I think the coaching staff has felt as well. I'm sure the front office back there somewhere, because they are falling down the Atlantic Division. But even if they aren't doing that, they're playing bad hockey, haven't won a regulation game in 7 games. Darius, I want to start with this from Craig Berube. He said, we can't complain and get undisciplined if teams are checking us hard. Every game we play, they're going to check hard, and you've got to fight through the checks. And we discussed that a little bit yesterday, and we have some comments from Austin Matthews. Stay tuned for that. But looking at the Atlantic Division now, the Leafs are 4 points back of Florida. Ottawa is right on their tail. Montreal, not really on their tail, but they're definitely competing and playing better than the Toronto Maple Leafs are right now, taking care of business against the Panthers. It's rock bottom for this team right now.
Yeah, as it pertains to this season, like you said, because, if you woke up the morning of the game against San Jose 2 weeks ago, you're like, all right, we're feeling pretty good as the fan base. The team is doing pretty well this season. There's no reason to believe that they wouldn't win in the first round. And 2 weeks later, you wake up this morning, you're like, what just happened? Like, now you're in third place. You don't even have home ice advantage right now if the playoffs were to start today in the first round of the playoffs. And the Senators are only a couple points behind you. And one thing that we don't have in terms of quotes is Austin Matthews last night said, the Ottawa Senators, when he was asked about the Ottawa Senators, he went on to say that, they're a good young team and they've been coming up for a while and all this, like as if he's justifying the loss or something. Like, some of the comments from last night are, again, so tone deaf from your top guys. And I think that's the reason why the fan base is even more upset, because not only are they losing, not only is this a bit of a disaster right now the last 2 weeks, especially the special teams, which we'll get to in a second too, the comments from the players, right? Like, they're completely tone deaf, and I think that Leaf fans are sick and tired, honestly, of having their intelligence insulted at some points, right? So I think that's why the fan base feels so bad right now, even on top of obviously losing and all of that. But we'll get into some comments too from some of the players and even Craig Berube. But he's correct when he says that you can't be looking for calls. Like, what are you even looking for a call for, right? Like, the power play has not been good. So I think that's why Leaf fans are pretty fired up waking up this morning.
Yeah, looking at the standings, again, we got lucky, I guess, in the sense that Montreal beat the Panthers in yesterday's game, so they're still within 4 points, and they have a game in hand. But at this point, you're chasing the Tampa Bay Lightning as well. They're tied with the same amount of points, but it's going to be an interesting one of the closest Atlantic divisions we've seen in a few years here. But Austin Matthews spoke out in a while. But Austin Matthews spoke out on the game energy levels. He said, it's that point in the season where everybody is grinding through something right now. So yeah, it is what it is. Just got to keep pushing, keep trying to do what I can do, compete out there, just try and keep generating opportunities. And Craig Berube spoke out on Austin Matthews and said, this time of year, there's always guys that are playing hurt or banged up and stuff, and he's no different, but he'll fight through it. He doesn't want any sympathy. He'll fight through it. And we've been obviously talking about, it's clear that he's injured to some degree. We don't know where. We don't know the level of severity. I'm sure we'll find out after the season, like we did last season after the playoffs ended, and we heard about some of the injuries there. But think about William Nylander and things like that. But regardless of that, regarding Austin Matthews, I mean, I guess it's a pretty PR answer, a pretty media safe answer there. Everybody's dealing with some things. The difference is Austin Matthews is supposed to be the best goal scorer in the NHL, and he's not playing like it at all. He's getting paid a lot of money, $14 million, whatever it is, to play good hockey. And it's not that he's playing bad hockey, but he's not getting paid 14 to play good. He's playing 14 to play elite hockey, and he hasn't been doing that. And the team hasn't been doing that. And it's starting to kind of trickle down. When Austin Matthews doesn't play well, it filters down to the rest of the team.
And I think something that is becoming more apparent, and I'll get to that in a second, your last comment there, because I think it's a good point. But, it's kind of trickling down for the whole team at this point, because he is the captain. And a lot of people say that he shouldn't be the captain because he doesn't seem like he's the vocal type, or they compare him to so many different captains around the league. But he does lead by example usually, right? Like, with his play. So I think that's why he was named captain, and it's an obvious choice. And he was probably going to be named captain years ago when Tavares was too, but we all know the story about that as well. But everything kind of goes through him. And I think what's becoming more apparent right now this season is if you're this hurt, because it's looking like he's pretty hurt, right? Like he's not playing at all like what we're used to. Why didn't you go on LTIR before the trade deadline? You could use that 13 million to acquire three different players, bolster the team up. That I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning did that a couple years ago with Kucherov, and there's a lot of questions around, is he going to be rusty when he comes back for the playoffs? That was not the case, right? We didn't see that. So a lot of people are questioning why didn't they do that at this point in time if you're this injured, because it's looking like he is, right? Like he can't really shoot. They're not looking for him on the power play anymore either. Like, the game has changed and everything has at times gone through him, especially last season. You could see guys passing up open shots to pass to him. So that has been kind of their style for the last little while, whether you like it or not. But, things have kind of gone away this season in that way. So I do wonder why that wasn't an option, something that they considered, because we're here now. And the fact that he's taking morning skates off, like it's become pretty obvious, I think, to everybody that he's dealing with something. And we can speculate until we're blue in the face on what it is. We don't know, right? And we won't know until they tell us, if they ever do. So we'll see. But some of the comments do make sense from Matthews, but then the ones from about the Senators last night, it's a little bit tone deaf, and I think that's why the fan base is just fed up at this point, like at this point of the season.
Yeah, William Nylander also spoke out. He said, I don't think that we've got to our game until at some point in the third period, just not playing to our level right now. What has to change? I think we got to simplify and grind a little bit. That's it. It's pretty true. They haven't really been playing with any grit. You can see Craig Berube's urgency and details in the first two periods that weren't there. Concerned it was not there for 60 minutes. Well, I'm concerned for sure. It's just an attitude that we have to have from the start of the game. You can see this here, a quote tweet. This stupid staring on time is the players had this issue from the Babcock days, and it is ultimately on the players, right? Whether or not, and obviously it was a typo trying to say starting on time, but regardless, it's at the point now where they played. I mean, they had a decent start against the Panthers, a 5-minute start there where they played well, but other than that, they've been playing really bad hockey until the third period. And I think they had a great third period yesterday. They were pressing, a little bit unlucky with goal scoring, but you can't afford to be unlucky when you're not scoring goals. You're not drawing penalties, and when you do draw penalties, you're not scoring. They're the 30th. They're 30th in the league in PK heading into yesterday's game. The penalty kill isn't good either, and that's the difference. We saw it in last year's Stanley Cup final and throughout the whole playoffs with the Edmonton Oilers. The reason they got there was because anytime a penalty was drawn against them, they just cleared it no problem, and that's what teams feel like. Every team feels like the 2024 playoff Oilers against the Leafs. But you can see this here. Matthews in the Leafs slump. We have to get it through our head that all these games, especially some of the teams we're playing, are going to be playoff-like against teams fighting for their lives. We have to wrap our head around that and just be better all around as a team. So, Darius, any final thoughts? And again, Craig Berube is going over some more comments. They say they want to win. Trust me on that. They want to win. Frustration means nothing to me at this point. They actually have to win. But as you start to look at the actual, I know it's a little bit small, but the playoff sphere here, as I like to call it, there's still 99.2% chance to make the playoffs. And then from there, you go down. It kind of goes to show less about the Leafs, because we know they've been favorited to win the first round for years now. They've only done it once against the Tampa Bay Lightning a couple of years ago. But you look at some of the other teams now, like the Canadians are knocking on the doorstep. The Lightning are ahead of the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's not much room for error here to finish out the season, and they have to stop the spiral, and that's why tomorrow's game is going to be absolutely crucial. Yes, it's not against an Atlantic team that's, not against a team that's really close to you in the standings, but you need to stop the bleeding right now, or else you could fall down quickly. And I'm not going to say fall out of the playoffs. I don't think that's realistic, but I mean, I've seen crazier happen.
I think they'll make the playoffs, but the question is what happens after that. And one thing I've noticed the last little while that's become very obvious to me, at least, is Craig Berube. What he's saying makes a ton of sense, and it makes sense with what we're seeing. I feel like every fan can kind of hear what he's saying, especially after last night, and go, I'm seeing this on the ice. This makes sense what he's saying. It is probably a personnel issue. It's on the players at this point. They have the coaching staff in place. They have a power play system in place. It's the players that are not executing on this. But the one thing that I've noticed through all of this is William Nylander and Craig Berube's quotes, what they've been saying, align. Everyone else doesn't necessarily align. I feel like everyone else spends too much time talking about the other team and what the other team was able to do. Yeah. Let's focus on what you're able to do. Play your game, right? So I feel like Nylander and Berube do kind of align in that way, and we've seen that dynamic throughout the season. So everything that they say, kind of makes sense, right? And everyone else that they interview and every other quote is kind of like talking about the other team and why we lost, right? Like I don't like that. So that's got to be cleaned up too. That's a mentality thing that we know has always been with this team. So it's going to be interesting. They have to pick it up here. They have to win the next game. There's no other option. If you continue to slide, then you might end up playing the Panthers in the first round because you're a wild card team, right? Like this could turn around very quickly. So they have to pick up this next win against Calgary, and that the schedule doesn't get easier. Let's not look for a team that might be easier to beat. It doesn't get easier.
Yeah. Hopefully, the Leafs can take care of business. I'm sure we'll have some updates at the practice and the skate tomorrow. So keep you up to date with that. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. We'll be live following tomorrow's game. And hopefully, the Leafs can get the job done there. But we'll see you guys in tomorrow afternoon's video.